extrude it and make a fairing like this. So I'm about finished making this, and I'll show you how it becomes a fairing basically. So you have the basic shape of your fairing. You are going to separate the end face of the fairing. Sorry, I couldn't think of the full amount. Then separate one edge from the other edge, like that. Oh, and also if you're doing this, because I got into a mindset to this, I didn't do the. You need to zero out the very end of your fairing, or it's going to be flat and look weird in the render. It's going to be reflecting light or something if it's head on. So yeah, you should zero that out and then select the one half of the fairing. So select one half of the fairing, then you have two fairings here. Also, the reason why I'm making two fairing halves is because I can delete one side, and I like to extrude one side in, then bevel the insides like this, separate it, separate these, the inner flat parts of it. Sorry, one minute. Also, you should bring down the opacity of your blueprint. Just do that. I didn't do that initially. Bring down the opacity when. Oh, I think I know the problem. I moved this part down in solid viewport shading. So separate that all in the same thing. Then take the insides, bring it in like that. Bring that in like that. I don't know why that's not working. Sometimes it works and sometimes it just doesn't want to work. And so I guess I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be doing any fairing suppression render anyway. So what I was going to do is bring this out, then bevel it, then select the faces here. Right? Select the faces here, then separate it and do a different material for that. But I can't seem to do that with this. So I'm just going to make another fairing half. Rotate like that. Bring it to my rocket, center it, and then yeah, I'm going to bring it in like that. So make sure this is centered, right? Because it's a hollow object. It's going to look a little weird if lights are reflecting through this empty object, really. So it's going to be a bit hard to do. Yeah, I'll cut to, and I'm making the material sand making the booleans for the engine. So next we are going to be putting in um, the first stage engines. Uh, the first stage engines to the bottom of the engine section. But first we are going to need to boolean the area and make a padding material and object. So I'll first name some of these new objects I made, then I'll come back to that. Okay. So I brought down the engine and also made a cylinder object. Don't worry about naming this or uh, putting this in a collection or anything. We're going to be deleting that because I brought this in to make the booleans and make the engine section. So just bring it in to the center of the engine, and it's not aligned here, but that's fine. I think it should be good enough that it looks like it's aligned and shouldn't look too off really. So yeah, it should look fine. That's what I'm trying to say. So I brought in this cylinder and scale it to your engine's dimensions. Not too much, you don't really need to. It's going to be here in the area for it. But I just like to do this so it's not clipping or anything. Bring in the boolean object, make it a little bit longer and select the first stage. The first stage engine, or sorry, not the engine, the tank. Then smooth this out. You don't need to just do it because it looks cleaner. Select go into the modifiers tab, select boolean, select the cylinder object. I'm guessing some of you know how booleans work, but I'm just running you through it if you need to remember or you don't fully know, but just do what I'm doing on screen. You should be able to do it. So go into the first stage, first stage tank, go into the modifiers tab, select boolean, and you should have this come up. Select the eyedropper, select the boolean object, the object that you are trying to boolean into the fuel tank. Then you should make a few more of these, like I think 9, right? Yeah, 9. If you see here, it has 9 Rutherford engine mounts here. Each is, I think, yeah, 45 degrees angles apart. So you should just make that and adjust it to your liking. And here it's a bit smaller, right? It looks a bit smaller than it should be, I think, because it's so close to each other. There, see, doesn't have so much space. So just use the same object here, bring it in or bring it out to here, to the edge. Go to objects, set origin to 3D cursor, and rotate it 45 degrees each one. Actually no, that's not working. Yeah, it needs to be a little smaller actually, but that's fine. The engine is a bit smaller, so it should fit normally. I just need to make that smaller so it doesn't intersect and mess up the normals. So do the same thing, duplicate that, bring that out to the edge here, set origin 3D cursor, duplicate it 9 times, turn it 45 degrees. You can turn it 90 degrees and take each one, then duplicate that, rotate it 45 degrees. like that. So you can do that a little quicker than separating it 9 times. You only need to separate it 6 times or so. And then you have this boolean this boolean object. You should do fast solvers, or select the fast solver option, because it's going to run easier, and also you're not seeing the inside, right? So you don't need to do the you don't need to apply an object or anything. So apply that, take this, hide it, and see if that works. Yep, in this case it does work. And I'm not going to be deleting these objects. I don't think most people do, but I'm not going to be deleting, because I'm using these objects for the engine mounts, right? The cloth mounts you see on rocket engines. I'll put up a picture here on screen of the cloth mounts on Falcon 9 or Electron, and show you how it looks and how to make that. So boolean this object, it should look like this. Keep the cylinder here, and I'll boolean the rest of these objects and come back and show you how it looks. So I have booleaned each object here. I'll select all these objects and hide it to show. Sometimes it doesn't select. Oh no, I didn't select that. There's a lot of objects to select. So I'll hide that and show you. So this is how it should look inside the rocket engine section. I only do this because I want there to be a little space, and if I need to make a render to like separate the entire tank, right? The cloth shield and everything. The ablator. There you are. I finally thought of the word. So reselect all these objects, unhide them. You might not have hidden these in the first place. So just if you did hide them, just unhide them. Then select all these. Bring it down here. Bring it down here. Select the top parts of the engine or the soot covers, and bring it down to near the end of it. Then select the bottom parts. Sorry if the video is lagging a little bit, because running this now is going to be a little bit more difficult, because there are so many shapes here, or so many objects here. So bring this in. Actually, I should align that with this. Yeah, it should be aligned like that, around there. Should smooth. It should look something like that. Actually, I think you can join all these together. Then select the top part of the engine, or sorry, again the soot cover. Then select all these, make it a little wider there, so it covers the engine mounts. Then take I separated these by going up here and selecting individual origins by the so I could change the scale of these all at the same time, and I didn't need to redo them all over again. So I selected individual origins, then scaled it up. So after you do that, you should select median point to medium point, select medium point again, because if you don't, it's going to look a little weird when you have when you scale something, especially when you scale like rocket plumes or whatever, which are going to look a little bit different, to say the least, when you do that, because it is such a weird shape, and if you change it like in a strange way, it's going to look like it's jittering somehow, or at least for me anyway. I don't know if that would happen everywhere. Select the engine, bring it all the way in until the pressure chamber, or not the pressure chamber, the combustion chamber is fully inside the rocket. Also, don't forget to select all these, right? And put it all the way up into the engines here. Then duplicate these engines and put it where all these other soot covers are. I'm going to do that a few more times, and then I'll come back to sculpting the engine covers. So I have duplicated all these engines 9 times, and because these aren't too complicated and doesn't have many turbo pumps and wiring and anything, you should just join all these. Actually, I'll join these later. You should join these, but later, after you give it material, all 3 parts, or it's just going to look the same material all 3 times, or all 9 times. I got stuck into a starship mentality there with 3 engines. So basically all our engines are done, the main model is done. Now we only have decals and materials to go, really. So first of all, just delete the reference. You don't really need the reference anymore. You could keep it, just but I like to remove it because it clutters the area, and get rid of the collection. I only put the collection there because I thought I would have more references, which I might actually later on, but we won't have many references anymore. Only like material references and decal references, and they're not even going to be references really. So now we need to make a material for the main tanks, which are going to be used both for the second fuel tank and the first fuel tank. So go to materials, click no, and you can just add a black material, make it more metallic, and give it a little bit of roughness if you want to. But what I like to do is, when you look at a Electron, there are a few bumps on the actual first stage material itself. There might be or might be not. I'm just adding it so, because some of them have it, and I like that look of it, the bumps and everything. I'll put up an image of Electron for you to see how that looks. So go to shading view, or open up a window like that. Open up shading, the shader editor, so you can move around the camera and everything. Click with that. Then instead of just doing base color, I'm going to do base color here because I just want to make sure how that looks. Yeah, yeah, like that. Then we're going to have a wave texture. Add a wave texture, then press Control T if you have node wrangler, or put in mapping and texture coordinate nodes. Then put in a bump map. Actually, put in a color ramp node. Put a color ramp node in here, so it's a little bit more controllable. Bring the bump into the normal map here. Put the normal map here into the normal map here on the principled BSDF. After connecting color to height and color to factor on color ramp and wave texture on the wave texture and the color ramp, and mapping just like how you do normally. Select the middle section here in the wave texture. Select z-axis, so it's going top to down, top to bottom, and making like lines in the texture itself. Bring in the white flag on the color ramp. Scale can be the same, it's not too big, the bumps really, so scale can be the same, and into phase offset actually, so it's like that roughly. So it roughly looks like that, and here almost like this. Yeah, and so bring up the scale. Then it doesn't seem to work here. Yeah, so bring up the scale like this, then bring the scale down like that here. Yeah, basically like that. So that's basically it. Just need to make it a little smaller. I'll mess around with the textures a little bit and make it a little bit smaller and have a little bit more detail.